whenever I'm out of Nigeria, I would love to go into a store. I would shop for food produce. Most times I never even get to use them, but I just love the experience. I love produce. I love to go into the local market. I went through their facility and I looked at it and I'm like, this can be replicated at home. Like, what stops us? So immediately I had a wave, like, you know what, I was going to create a concept grocery experience.
We've done a few projects together before, and the way we've worked is he's always given us free rein. Yes, there's an idea behind whatever it is that he wants to do, but he lets us run with it, so to speak, and that's basically what happened here. I mean, the thing about working on this particular project, like most projects in Nigeria, especially if you're in a built-up environment like this, is that you're most likely going to have to work with an existing building. So when Owolabi was still looking for a space, I think he had found this, but he invited us to come and look at it. It was a residential building, and for what they wanted to do, it obviously required a lot of open space. So the brief actually was done in collaboration with another team based in South Africa.
Yeah.
However, we took ownership of the solutions because we wanted to do something that was for us. When I say for us, for this environment. So the space had to reflect that and it had to speak to that. But most importantly, the space had to speak to the functionality or what basically was going to be done here. And that is, on the ground floor, it was meant to be like a high-end grocery store. The whole idea of this space really is that it's a place where you can come to either buy groceries or come and buy food ready to eat or ready to take away. The brief kind of evolved, which led to what we actually have now, which is like the whole of the upstairs being the sort of like cafe slash bakery and like a coffee shop as well. Yeah. But the idea basically came out of the fact that, okay, how do we take the space that was meant to be a residential space and convert that into what it is now? So our solution really was to introduce a steel frame into the building so that we could take out all the walls and open it all up. We still had to insert steel members so that it could carry the existing roof, and also to sort of like basically improve on the structural integrity of the building, because it wasn't really a building that was well built. There are so many things that we discovered when we were stripping out that, there were some areas that probably should have been different to what we met. The sort of language that we use for our architecture is like to keep it very simple. And there's a level of simplicity that starts to look as if, what did you do here? You didn't really do much. But behind all that you can see now is the thinking and there was a lot of experimentation as well that went into this. But it was just the understanding of what we do, because over time, one has developed a thoroughness that goes with what we have to deliver. So the materiality is actually just using a very simple palette. We wanted it to be very industrial. We also wanted it to be somewhat, we didn't want the space to interfere with the people that were going to experience it. We wanted the food to actually do the talking, because especially with the way things are being displayed, if you go downstairs, which is like the grocery section, it's how we've curated the display units and, how you move around the space as well. Even though it's in one single volume, but we've managed to sort of like create some type of a way of separating spaces without actually using anything tangible like walls, whatever. But, maybe colors and maybe, the material and different things can actually be used to sort of like create this separation. And that's what we try to do downstairs. But with regards to the upstairs, it was really Olabi's call. You know, he said, I want something that's gonna pop. You know, and I just thought, let's play around with colors and then just use colors to separate the spaces, which is why you have the yellow here, and you have the pink over there, and you have the lime green over there. But it's just using that to sort of like define spaces and define some type of experience. The lighting was also something that kind of like aided that whole separation of spaces, and the furniture as well. You know, trying to just be very simple, but very intentional. This wasn't something that was, you know, not thought through before it was actually executed. Everything, every little thing that goes in. I mean, the floor is a polished concrete floor, and it was painstaking in trying to achieve what we ended up with. You know, in as much as we wanted it to look very organic, we didn't want it to look too pristine or too contrived. We wanted it to have that sort of like quirkiness that gives it a life of its own. But we were doing everything within the sort of like realms of the understanding that we've managed to develop over time. And then we took it to another level by making sure that, I mean, the good thing about Olabi and Bodega is that they document things for themselves, really. And they had a lot of information that we thought could be incorporated into the art, as in like, you know, things that you see on the wall. And images that you see on the wall are actually images of what we were doing during the process. And I thought that speaks volumes to what we ended up with. When we opened up the whole space, right, we had sections that became somewhat dark. So in order to bring light into those spaces, the only thing that one could do is to just introduce skylights. But we wanted to do it in such a way that the light was diffused.
Yep.
So it wasn't so like coming in with a lot of heat and all that kind of stuff. So we used a sandblasted film to sort of like diffuse the light. So what's interesting about it is like when you look at them, now you think that it's a light fitting that's there, and not realize that it's actually daylight that is
daylight
peering through.
And for me personally, I love light. I mean, if you've seen things that I've already been involved with, when you look at Circa, it was one of the highlights. In fact, it's very, very clear once you come in because you can look up and you can see the skylight. I believe if you've got a lot of natural light in the space, it makes the space happier.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thinking of all the elements, functionality, I mean, every aspect of design. And the best part about working with him is, apart from being an architect, he's an artist. Purely. Like it's almost like he would contort, he would bend, he would use, we would come solution driven, we would just find a way to make everything work. It's always, everything he creates is one-on-one. And we also have a very good working relationship. It's my bond. And it's almost like he's the only one that understands my mind, my inner thoughts in terms of how I see things, design, space. I mean, working with him is similar. It's like you work with people and you're stressed. Working with him, I'm just, every day I look forward to seeing just that, you know, just even if we were on this particular level today, I'm looking forward to what the craftsmanship would achieve in the next 10 to 12 hours, because there will be a huge significance, and it's always painstaking, it's always very intentional. What I know for sure is we've not copied anybody. And it's not even a bad, I mean, copying is not a bad thing. No idea is original, because this all must have come from somewhere. It was heavily curated. It was painstaking. No matter where we were, we had a Thursday meeting at 11 a.m. that we all attended. We had the Nigerian team, we had the South African team. Everybody went through. And at the end of the day, it got to a point where both of us just decided that, are we actually, for some weird reason, going with an imposter syndrome mindset? Because we had this thing covered and we like, you know what, we switched the entire design, which the South Africans weren't happy about. And we just turned it around, and then we ended up with this. Honestly,
I think what's also important to mention is that the South Africans really were more towards the produce, the food, and all that kind of stuff. And we were like, man, why are they going to teach us the kind of food that we know that is actually meant for this context? So I felt that it was important for us to take charge, and that obviously kind of like went across board, even with the way the space actually ended up coming out. I mean, the space, in as much as I like to keep it not traditional, but I like to design for the space that we're in and the context and all that. But what's also very interesting about this space is that it's quite universal.
Yep.
It could be anywhere. Do you
Anywhere in the
understand?
world.
But the spirit that drives it is deep rooted in the environment that we're in.
Yep.
The mind that drives it, the mind, and the people that interact with it as well, are deep rooted in this environment. So you might not necessarily see it first glance, but once you sit in this space for a little while and you start to feel the vibrations coming from people that are interacting with it, you sense what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Anytime you come here and you take something on the menu and you go and then you come back some other time afterwards, it still tastes the same. So the consistency level, boom, on point. So that's really what prompted us to step up our game as well, to make sure that whatever time someone comes into this space, the architecture was still saying the same thing.
I don't think I have a favorite part, but if I were to pick one unique part, it's the floor. Yeah, it was so hard to achieve. It was proper craftsmanship, and we'll come every day. We'll look at it. We'll look at the texture. So what I try to tell people is simplicity, or being simple, is always used loosely. It's the hardest thing to achieve. In as much as we take it for granted, just having a straight line, just having things in place, seeing the way everything, there's just a sync. You look at, even with the industrial feel, even with the beams, it doesn't look out of place. It looks like, and which is true, it was properly curated. Everything comes out simple, but it is properly deconstructed. I just know how to put things together and work with people to bring out the best in them. It's usually the people, it's never me. For me, I'm always a prompt. I'm just always like, let's do it this way, let's do it. It sounds crazy, but by the time we give it, I always try to tell people, I will things into existence. For me, you can say it's not possible, but as long as I continuously talk about it every day, then the universe is already conspiring. And I just had to meet people that kind of get it, and then we all piece it together, and then we end up creating magic, if I can say.
For me, it's not really about the space, because this is what I do, right? And it's not anything in particular. But one thing that I always say to myself, and I always try to express it to others, is that whenever we create something, or whenever we're commissioned to do something for a client, that thing is not really for just the client. It is for others to see, interact with it. So immerse themselves in the space, to understand and appreciate what the space is about. But for me, it is about people that come into this space and don't feel overwhelmed by it or feel attacked by it, but just feel comfortable in it. So it's really about the psychology of the space. And the interesting thing is I met one of Olabi's daughters the other day, and he now introduced me as, that's the person that designed the Bodega. And so I asked her the question, what do you think about it? She says, I like it. That's what I like about what we've done here. That's what I measure the success of our projects by, how it actually lifts people's emotions and all the five senses. That's what it's about. I always like to say this, that most of the young architects or designers that are out there have to learn something, and they have to learn it from someone or from somewhere. So I've taken it upon myself that, I have to be able to, impact on young students, young architects, and I'm going to be lecturing, I've actually started lecturing at the Yaba College of Technology, so that there are others that can, develop the mindset that is required to help make Nigeria great again.
Yep.
So my inspiration comes from everywhere, but most importantly these days, my inspiration, I'm trying to make sure that my inspiration comes from this environment where I'm in, the people, the music, the culture, the all the things that just make us proud to be Nigerian. That's what inspires me, because we need to lift Nigeria up to a level where what the musicians have done, the Afrobeat kids have done, they're just like, they made a lot of people in the diaspora very proud to be Nigerian. Yeah. So I'm trying to sort of like find a way to create the architecture that is so reminiscent of Nigeria. It might be innovative, it has to be really, but most importantly, architecture has to speak to where it's from, and we're from Nigeria, so it has to speak volumes.